and subscribe.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, man. I still can't go live.
Yeah, no, you can't. I couldn't go live for like, I think it was like 2 weeks.
They told me 30 days.
30 days?
Oh, listen.
Why you had to
jump, you Flip?
I just want to talk to Yandy.
See, you
my
do
nephew
this
here.
again. Come on, Flip.
I'm gonna
Flip. You playing with the hands and you yelling. Come on.
Why you had them jump me?
I didn't have nobody jump you.
So why they touch me for?
You touched me. You smacked my hand.
Alright, so what, man? I give me a hug, man.
Come on, Flip.
No,
Come on. See,
no,
stop.
Flip.
Flip.
Stop. Give me a hug. Give me a hug. You jump me again. Jump me again.
This is absolutely shocking. Just when we thought Yandy, Smith-Harris, and Mendeecees were enjoying a peaceful getaway in Mexico, things took a dramatic turn. So dramatic that it landed Mendeecees in handcuffs. Yes, you heard that right. What was supposed to be a relaxing trip with their fellow cast members turned into an all-out brawl, leaving fans in utter disbelief. Eyewitnesses claimed that tensions had been rising for days, but no one expected it to explode the way it did. One moment, Mendeecees was spotted laughing and vibing with the group, and the next, chaos erupted. A heated argument quickly spiraled into a violent altercation, and before anyone could step in, fists were flying. The most shocking part? Local authorities wasted no time in stepping in, and Mendeecees was taken away in handcuffs, right in front of Yandy. The big question now is, what led to this massive fallout? Who was the cast member involved? And most importantly, what happens next for Mendeecees? Stay tuned, because we have all the details, exclusive insider reactions, and never-before-heard information about this jaw-dropping arrest. Mexico, sun-drenched beaches, luxurious resorts, and breathtaking ocean views. Everything seemed perfect as Yandy, Smith-Harris, Mendeecees, and a few fellow cast members arrived for what was supposed to be a much-needed getaway. The trip was meant to be a mix of business and pleasure, with some filming and a lot of relaxation. Fans had been watching closely, excited to see their favorite couple enjoying life away from drama and chaos. But what no one expected was that this so-called vacation would soon turn into an explosive disaster, one that would leave Mendeecees in handcuffs. At first, everything appeared smooth. Yandy, glowing in a stylish white summer dress, was spotted lounging by the pool, sipping cocktails with the ladies. Mendeecees, on the other hand, was laughing and chatting with the guys at the resort's private bar. The atmosphere was light, with music playing and drinks flowing. For a while, it seemed like they were all finally getting a moment of peace. But behind the scenes, tensions were already brewing, and the seeds of conflict had been planted. Eyewitnesses say the first signs of trouble appeared earlier that afternoon when Mendeecees got into a heated conversation with a certain cast member, a man whose name is being kept under wraps for now. The exchange wasn't immediately explosive, but those who were close enough to hear it say that it was filled with tension. Voices were low, but body language was sharp, with Mendeecees looking visibly irritated. At one point, Yandy was even seen stepping in, placing a hand on Mendeecees' arm as if to calm him down. But it didn't seem to help. Insiders claim the argument stemmed from a remark made about Mendeecees' past legal troubles, an issue that has always been a sore subject for him. Mendeecees took it personally, one source revealed. He felt like it wasn't just a joke. It was a dig at his manhood, his growth, and everything he had been through. Though the initial argument ended without a physical altercation, it was clear that the issue hadn't been put to rest. Mendeecees was later seen pacing around the resort, shaking his head and talking to himself, clearly trying to calm his frustration. Then came dinner, an exclusive, high-end beachfront restaurant with an open-air dining area. The perfect place for a relaxing meal. The cast arrived in good spirits. Or at least, that's how it seemed on the surface. Yandy and Mendeecees sat at one end of the long table while other cast members spread out, chatting and laughing as drinks were poured and plates were set. But the calm was deceiving. Just as the entree arrived, the tension that had been simmering all day finally exploded. It started with a simple back and forth, a few words exchanged between Mendeecees and the same cast member he had argued with earlier. The topic? Once again, his past. The cast member, emboldened by alcohol and the relaxed atmosphere, made another slick remark, something about how once a hustler, always a hustler. Mendeecees froze mid-bite. He put his fork down slowly, his jaw tightening. What did you just say? The table fell silent. Yandy's eyes darted between the two men, instantly sensing where this was heading. Come on, let's not do this right now, she said softly, placing a hand on Mendeecees' forearm. But it was too late. The cast member smirked, leaning back in his chair, unfazed. I'm just saying some people don't really change. They just learn how to hide it better. Mendeecees pushed his chair back, standing up. His voice was dangerously low, the kind of calm that comes before a storm. You got one more time to come at me like that. At this point, everyone at the table was holding their breath. Security guards stationed nearby took a few cautious steps closer, sensing that things were about to take a turn for the worse. The cast member, instead of backing down, scoffed. Or what? You gonna do something? You gonna show everyone here exactly who you really are? That was it. That was the moment everything exploded. Before anyone could react, Mendeecees lunged forward, flipping the table in the process. Plates shattered, glasses fell to the ground, and silverware clattered against the wooden deck. Chaos in paradise, a night gone wrong. Gasps filled the air as chairs toppled over, cast members scrambling to get out of the way. Mendeecees' fist landed squarely on his opponent's face, sending him stumbling back into a nearby table. Plates crashed to the floor. Guests recoiled in shock. The man recovered quickly, wiping his mouth before swinging back, his fist connecting with Mendeecees' jaw. The impact was brutal. Yandy's scream pierced through the chaos. Stop, Mendeecees. Stop. But it was too late. The fight had taken on a life of its own. The two men threw wild punches, bodies colliding with tables and knocking over drinks. The restaurant staff panicked, some shouting for security, others ducking behind the bar for cover. Guests either fled or whipped out their phones, eager to capture the unfolding mayhem. Security rushed in, trying to break it up, but Mendeecees wasn't done. Fueled by rage, he shoved one of the guards aside and tackled the cast member to the ground. A sickening thud followed as another punch landed hard against the man's ribs. The struggle sent a line of liquor bottles tumbling from the bar, shattering on impact. Finally, after a frantic struggle, multiple security guards managed to separate them. Mendeecees stood there, chest heaving, his face twisted with fury. Across from him, his opponent wiped a streak of blood from his split lip, glaring back with equal fire. The restaurant was in shambles. Staff huddled together, speaking in hushed, frantic tones. Some cast members rushed to comfort Yandy, who stood frozen in shock, tears brimming in her eyes. "What are you doing?" she cried, voice shaking. But worse was coming. Just as the dust seemed to settle, piercing sirens split through the night. The sound sent a jolt of fear through the crowd. Seconds later, the restaurant's entrance was bathed in flashing red and blue lights. The police had arrived. The atmosphere shifted in an instant. Fear replaced adrenaline. The once vibrant beachfront setting now felt suffocating, the walls closing in as officers stormed in. Yandy stood paralyzed, her wide eyes reflecting the incoming officers. This wasn't supposed to happen. This was supposed to be a getaway, a break from all the stress back home. But now they were caught in a nightmare. Mendeecees, still breathing hard, flexed his fingers as if debating whether to fight or surrender. The cast member he had brawled with leaned against an overturned chair, muttering curses under his breath. A cast member grabbed Yandy's arm, whispering urgently, "Get him out of here, Yandy. Now." But she couldn't move. She couldn't think. And the reality of what was about to happen hit her like a tidal wave. The reality of what had just happened hit her like a ton of bricks. This wasn't just some minor scuffle that would blow over. This was serious. Mexico wasn't the United States. The laws here were different, the consequences potentially harsher. And now, with the police closing in, it was clear that Mendeecees was in real danger of facing those consequences. As the first officer stepped into the restaurant, speaking rapidly in Spanish, the staff rushed to meet him, gesturing wildly. The manager pointed toward the wreckage, overturned tables, broken glasses, and the two men at the center of it all, Mendeecees and the cast member. Yandy snapped out of her daze and rushed to Mendeecees' side. "We have to go," she whispered urgently, her hands trembling as she grabbed his arm. "We can't stay here, the police." But Mendeecees wasn't listening. His gaze was locked on the cast member, who was still glaring at him, smirking as if he had won something by letting things get this far. That smug look only fueled Mendeecees' rage. Despite everything, he took a step forward, his fists still clenched. "Don't, Mendeecees," Yandy pleaded, tugging at his arm. "Don't make it worse, please." Her voice cracked with desperation. But Mendeecees seemed beyond reason. Before he could react, several officers surrounded them, speaking loudly and pointing at him. One officer raised his handcuffs, clearly preparing to make an arrest. Yandy immediately stepped in front of Mendeecees, her hands up in a defensive gesture. "Wait, wait," she cried, her voice switching to a pleading tone. "You don't understand. He was just defending himself. It wasn't his fault." But the officers weren't swayed. They had seen enough. A translator stepped in, quickly summarizing the situation. "They're saying he's under arrest for assault. They want him to come with them now, or they'll take him by force." Yandy's heart sank. "Arrest? No, no, no. This can't happen," she said, her voice shaking. She turned to Mendeecees, her eyes filled with fear. Please just cooperate. We'll figure this out later, but you can't fight them." For a moment, it looked like Mendeecees was going to resist. His body was tense, his expression defiant. But then he saw the panic on Yandy's face, the fear in her eyes. Something inside him shifted. He wasn't just angry anymore. He was afraid, too, afraid of what this could mean for his family, for his future. Slowly, he raised his hands. His jaw was clenched with frustration, but his movements were cooperative. The officers wasted no time. They roughly turned him around, forcing his arms behind his back as they snapped the handcuffs onto his wrists. The cold metal clicked into place. And just like that, Mendeecees was no longer a man enjoying a vacation. He was a man under arrest. "No," Yandy screamed, her voice echoing across the restaurant as she tried to push her way between Mendeecees and the officers. "You can't take him. He didn't start this. He was just defending himself. You can't do this." But the officers weren't listening. They dragged Mendeecees toward the exit, ignoring Yandy's pleas. The other cast members stood frozen, unsure of what to do. Some pulled out their phones to capture the moment as it unfolded, while others whispered among themselves, clearly in shock at how quickly the situation had spiraled out of control. The situation had escalated. The cast member who had been brawling with Mendeecees leaned back in his chair, a smug grin on his face. He had gotten under Mendeecees' skin, provoked him, and now it was Mendeecees who was paying the price. But Yandy wasn't going to let this happen without a fight. She ran after the officers as they led Mendeecees outside, shouting at them in both English and broken Spanish, hoping to find someone who would listen. "Please. He's not a criminal. You don't understand. He didn't do anything wrong. Let him go." The scene outside the restaurant was no less chaotic. Flashing police lights illuminated the street as curious onlookers gathered, some filming, others simply watching, as Mendeecees was led toward a waiting police van. Yandy followed close behind, still pleading with anyone who would listen, her desperation growing with each step. "Don't take him. Please. We'll figure this out. Just let him go." She was on the verge of tears now, her voice hoarse from shouting. But the officers remained stone-faced as they opened the back of the van and roughly shoved Mendeecees inside. Before the doors closed, Mendeecees turned to Yandy, his eyes filled with a mix of anger and helplessness. "I'm sorry," he mouthed, though his voice couldn't be heard over the blaring police sirens and Yandy's cries. Yandy's heart broke in that moment. She had seen Mendeecees in handcuffs before, had been through the ups and downs of his legal battles. But this felt different. This wasn't home. This wasn't the US legal system they were dealing with. This was Mexico. And the rules were different here. As the police van pulled away, Yandy stood on the street, tears streaming down her face. She watched helplessly as the love of her life was driven off into the night, not knowing what would happen next, not knowing how she would fix this. Back inside the restaurant, the remaining cast members were still reeling from the night's events. The staff had begun cleaning up the wreckage left behind from the fight, while guests slowly trickled out, whispering to one another about the chaos they had just witnessed. But for Yandy, this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. She wasn't going to let Mendeecees rot in a Mexican jail, not after everything they had been through together. She wiped her tears, took a deep breath, and pulled out her phone. There was only one thing left to do: call the lawyer and figure out how to bring her man back home. As she dialed the number, her hands still shaking, she whispered to herself, "We're going to fix this, Mendeecees. I'm not leaving Mexico without you." The aftermath. The fallout from Mendeecees' arrest was far from over. Though he had been released on bail, the scandal had already taken on a life of its own. Social media was ablaze with speculation, and the tabloids were running wild with exaggerated headlines. Some called him a victim of a setup. Others claimed he was out of control. But one thing was clear: this situation wasn't going to die down anytime soon. Back in their hotel suite, Mendeecees sat on the couch, scrolling through his phone, reading the endless flood of messages. Friends, family, and even some cast members had reached out, offering their support or asking what really went down. He felt exhausted, his body aching from the night before. But his mind wouldn't let him rest. Yandy stood near the window, watching the city lights, her arms crossed tightly. "We need to be careful with how we handle this," she said, her voice tense. "You know they're waiting for us to make a mistake." Mendeecees sighed, rubbing his temples. "I know, but what do you want me to do? Stay quiet and let them run with whatever story they want." "We can't just react emotionally," Yandy warned. "That's what they want. We need to control the narrative." Just then, Yandy's phone buzzed. It was a call from a producer of the show. She hesitated for a moment before answering. "Yandy, listen," the producer began, his tone urgent. "We need to get ahead of this. The network is the scandal unfolds. This is turning into a bigger scandal than we expected," the producer admitted, his voice tinged with panic. Yandy narrowed her eyes. "Bigger than you expected? So you expected something to happen?" The producer hesitated, then let out a nervous chuckle. "Let's just say drama makes good TV. But this is a little too real." Yandy clenched her jaw. She had a sinking feeling that the producers knew exactly what they were doing when they fueled tensions between Mendeecees and the other cast member. But now that things had spiraled out of control, they were scrambling to do damage control. "We want you and Mendeecees to sit down for an exclusive interview," the producer continued. "Tell your side of the story. Make it clear that this wasn't some reckless act of violence." Yandy glanced at Mendeecees, who was watching her carefully. "We'll think about it," she said before hanging up. Mendeecees shook his head. "So, now they want to clean up their mess?" "They don't care about cleaning up anything," Yandy muttered. "They just don't want to lose ratings." But as much as she hated the idea of playing into their hands, she knew they couldn't stay silent. The court of public opinion was already judging Mendeecees, and if they didn't take control of the story, someone else would. The interview. The next day, the couple agreed to sit down for the interview. Cameras were set up in their hotel suite, and a well-known journalist was brought in to ask the hard-hitting questions. The interview opened with footage of the fight playing on a screen behind them. Grainy security footage showed the other cast member repeatedly pushing Mendeecees, egging him on before Mendeecees finally snapped. The journalist turned to him. "So, tell us, what was going through your mind in that moment?" Mendeecees took a deep breath. "Honestly, I was trying to walk away. I knew it was getting heated, but I didn't come to Mexico for drama. I came to relax with my wife, to enjoy myself. But this guy, he kept pushing, testing me. And yeah, I lost my cool. I'm not proud of it." The journalist nodded. "Some people are saying you were set up, that this was all orchestrated for ratings. What do you think?" Before Mendeecees could respond, Yandy jumped in. "Look, I'm not going to sit here and act like reality TV doesn't thrive on drama. But this wasn't a storyline. This was real life. And when you put people in high-pressure situations with emotions running high, things can go left real fast." The journalist leaned forward. "So, do you regret what happened?" Mendeecees exhaled, looking down for a moment before meeting the camera's gaze. I regret letting someone get the best of me. I regret putting my family through this. But do I regret standing up for myself? No. Within hours, the interview went viral. Fans flooded the comments with mixed reactions, some defending Mendeecees, others still skeptical. But just when it seemed like things were settling down,